Hello, everyone. I'm Roman Polnar, and on behalf of Hebrew Free Loan's Business Circle, I'm delighted to welcome you to Food for Thought, a series of monthly conversations with experts in our community who have offered to share their knowledge and insights with us. And today we have a delicious topic to dive into. We'll be talking about wine. Well, mostly about wine. We'll also talk about how one of our Business Circle members turned his interest into a hobby, to an obsession, and eventually into a business. So if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you already have a business, or if you just love wine, you'll find this conversation especially interesting and relevant. But before welcoming Warren Egnell as our guest, our wine aficionado and longstanding Business Circle member, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Hebrew Free Loan of San Francisco, for supporting our Northern California Jewish community for over 124 years. And this series is another way to offer resources and support, because each person we're speaking with is a business owner with real-world experience, and they volunteer to share their insights that you may find helpful in navigating whatever you are facing in your own life or business. And for those of you joining us live, feel free to ask questions. You can use the comment section below. I'm sure Warren would love to tell you more about wine and answer your questions. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Warren Egnell, who is the CEO and founder of Duvan. We'll have a lot to cover. He's going to talk about a fresh perspective into the world of wine and how to create and enjoy memorable wine experience. So, Warren, welcome to Food for Thought. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Roman. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you to the Hebrew Free Loan, tremendous organization.
Thank you. We'll come back to that in a moment, but you know, Warren, I've got a lot of questions. I'm sure our viewers have a lot of questions, and I'm sure they would love some of your best wine tips, and we'll get to that. But first, I want to talk about something else, because I remember meeting you several years ago. You were in the consulting world, and you had an interest in wine. And fast forward, today you're all about wine. You're officially in the wine business. And so while I'd like to know how that journey evolved, because I'm sure you've got some great stories and lessons learned, but I'd like you to start with a quick introduction of what you're doing right now. Tell us about your wine business. Tell us about Duvan.
Well, thank you, Roman. Yes, it is an interesting story, but Duvan is what's known as an off-premise retailer. So we don't have a physical store. Everything we do is customized. It's a concierge style service and very personalized. And what we do is try to create unique experiences for our clients. So the way we sell wine is not by asking you to come into a store with hundreds of wines that are intimidating. It's to engage directly with us, either at an event, a tasting, a dinner where we're showcasing something special, or by interacting directly with me or someone on my team to understand what you like and what your budget is, and consequently then custom a program or an approach for how you want to drink wine, whether that's a $25 Chianti for a Tuesday night or a $1,000 Grand Cru Burgundy for a special occasion. We're here to work together with you to give you exactly what you need.
So fair to say that Duvan is a wine club?
There's a wine club component to it, but no, I would say it's a wine experience company. So it's really about putting people into an environment where they can enjoy wine in a comfortable, relaxed environment, fun, but also get some education through it without it being intimidating, because wine can be an intimidating topic. So we try to bring people together to taste wines, to share a camaraderie with other people who share like interests, and to have an adventure of discovering new and interesting things. I mean, anybody can sell you a great bottle of wine for $150. You just get a famous, Burgundy or Bordeaux wine. But to find not a good, but a great bottle of wine for $20, $30, or $40 is a very different type of challenge for most consumers, which is where most budgets lie these days, and something in which I take great pride in guiding people towards.
So you brought up two things that immediately popped up additional questions in my mind. One is wine can definitely be intimidating, right? There's just so many things to know about wine, and depending on where people are in their journey, might make it more or less accessible to them. And the second thing is that there's that social element. And I think some of the most interesting and best memories that I've had around wine were always with other people. So you've touched on that being an experiential company and an experience that you're creating. Let's talk about that. Tell us more about your approach, and how does Duvan create those memorable experiences?
Well, we like to showcase wineries or wine regions or varietals. So we bring people together for dinners or tasting experiences at various locations, around the Bay Area, primarily where I am, but also we travel to other locations. For example, I have a friend in Scottsdale, Arizona, where annually I go down there and we gather his friends in his home and do a wine showcase, and we pick a theme and they get to experience and enjoy wines from regions and with varietals that they're unaccustomed to, and then are able to put those into their personal collections. We also do some very special events where we'll have a winemaker traveling in from Italy, say from a producer like Vietti, from a famous Barolo producer, and we'll have a formal dinner where we'll showcase the current releases and perhaps some back vintages, and people get an opportunity to taste wines with the person who owns the winery or made the wine, which is something really that people in the trade generally are the ones who tend to do it. But the average consumer doesn't really get much of an opportunity to have those types of experiences in a very intimate experience.
Well, it also sounds like people get a chance to discover and explore wines they might not otherwise have access to at their local retailer. Is that fair assumption or fair thing to say?
No, absolutely, because most retail is designed to move product off the shelf as quickly as possible. Our model is very, very different in that we don't stock a huge inventory of wine because we tend to purchase that which our clients are looking for. Now, in fairness, every now and again, a phenomenal offer will fall into my lap. We'll jump on it, and then we'll promote it through our newsletter or on our website, and people tend to take advantage of those. So yes, it's a big world of wine. I'm an adventurous type of person. I like wines from all over the place, and I like to share those new discoveries with people. And often they find that new and different can sometimes be more pleasurable. We all have our own proclivities. We all, if we can only drink one more wine, we know which one we want that to be. But it's nice to have some diversity, and for folks to be able to try new and different things. Often they will find a new favorite or a seasonal favorite, and that's really, really exciting to me to see people's emotions develop in such a positive way when they're completely surprised. They say, "Well, I don't really like white Burgundy." Well, let's go into that a little bit deeper. Well, you may not like a particular style of this or that, but then you try this one, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know. So that's really what it's all about, is to open people's eyes to new experiences, new wines, new flavor profiles that they are often surprised that they like.
So you go off on wine discovery. You bring some of the best gems that you find along the way and places that we might not have access to in our local retailer. You bring it back, and then you create these wine experiences for people to get together, to discover, learn, and enjoy some of these different wines that, if they choose to, they can later purchase.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. It's a very difficult task to have to travel across Europe and other wine regions and find these wines, or go meet with my distributors and taste dozens and dozens of wines throughout the course of any given week, and pick out the best ones and then share those with my friends and clients. But that's the task I have chosen. It's sort of part of the journey, and this is a passion for me, as you can hopefully tell, and more of a lifestyle business than than a pure commercial enterprise, although it is that, of course. And it's really brought me a lot of pleasure and a lot of joy. And the most joy that I get out of it, frankly, is interactions with people and seeing the joy and the pleasure they get out of it. One of the things is, and it's really food and wine for me, as you can tell. I tend to eat a lot, but
it's a tough job, Warren.
Yeah, but particularly in Europe, I mean, it's highly unusual to see people just drinking wine. In the United States, we tend to just drink wine as an aperitif, but in Europe, it's wine and food. And that combination and the enhanced experience you get from food and wine together, and the social aspect of the people who are around you, to which you referred a little bit earlier, I think is what makes every interaction for me pleasurable and then also profitable, both from a financial as well as from a personal standpoint.
So I want to come back to the wines that you source and talk about who you usually invite to these tastings. And furthermore, obvious question in my mind is, how do you do that in the middle of a pandemic? I know that your business has grown quite a bit during this time, and I'm interested to hear how you're managing that growth. But you talked about the journey, right? Discovering the wines, and it brings you pleasure, and that's the path that you've chosen. Let's explore, and let's go backwards. You weren't always in the wine business, right? So your journey started somewhere else. I met you when you were in consulting. Tell us about that. What brought you here?
Well, yes, you're right. I fell into management consulting more by accident than by design. And like with everything, you put in your 10,000 hours, as they say proverbially, and you become somewhat of an expert. The eminence gris, I have the gray hair to prove it, and did that very successfully for a number of decades. But it wasn't my true passion. As effective as I was at consulting and as successful I was with that consulting business. But I had passion for a few things. In my 20s, I had passion for movies, never pursued that. And then developed, I always had this passion for wine from a very early age, learning about wine from my father, who was a great connoisseur of wine, drinking wine on Shabbos. And that just expanded. And it was always very interesting to me. I always drank a lot of wine, collected a lot of wine. And at one point had over 5,000 bottles in a personal collection. And to cut a long story short, I was involved with some people who wanted to buy some wine, and they were unsuccessful in making connections with some folks in the wine business to whom I introduced them. So I sold them some wine and then figured, okay, this could be an opportunity, and established the business and started out friends and family like any small business does on the side of my consulting business. And it just grew organically over time until about 3-4 years ago, I decided that I didn't want to sit in a cubicle of a Fortune 25 company 40 hours a week and commuting 2 hours a day. And while it was very lucrative, it just wasn't satisfying. And now, frankly, the only thing I miss about consulting is the money. Because as they joke in the wine industry, you make a small fortune by starting with a large one. But it's terrific. The people I meet, the things I get to do, I love it. And the best thing about it is I sell wine to my clients and my friends, and then they invite me to come and drink it with them. What's better than that? So that's really the journey. But it's a serious business. We have multiple facets to the business. The experiences I discovered, our wine club. We also have, you mentioned COVID. We've also done a lot of virtual experiences during this time, which have been very rewarding and very successful. I feel quite lucky to be in a business that has actually managed to thrive through COVID. I have deep empathy for folks who have struggled through this. I'm very, very lucky that our business has grown through this. And we've begun to start doing our in-person experiences again. We've taken the maximum number of precautions to the guidelines as we can. And I've noticed people are just desperate to get out and interact with each other again and be social. So we're prudent about how we do that. But we also do a lot of virtual things, a lot of corporate things, work with corporations, putting back on my consulting hat where I specialized in employee engagement. We do employee events and stakeholder engagement, customer engagement. We do customer-facing events. We just do it around wine and seminars and blind tastings and blending parties and events. So we're doing very successfully in the corporate world with that through COVID. and have actually migrated to doing some of these experiences with social groups, people inviting their friends over to their home. I'll come in and we'll savor champagne, and we'll do blind tasting of old world versus new world, really just trying to make it fun and a learning experience.
Well, there are a couple of things that I want to explore a little bit more. I mean, you've talked about your journey in pursuing wine as a passion that became a business, and you left management consulting, which was something you've done for a long time. I'm sure there were lessons learned along the way where you applied things that you've learned in consulting, perhaps even in advising your clients, that you then used yourself in starting the business. And I think for our business circle members or our viewers who are thinking about starting a business, there may be some really interesting gems that you could talk about. But let's first talk about sort of who are those people or organizations that you do these events for today. You've mentioned corporate retreats, you've mentioned team building, you've also mentioned coming into people's homes and having a great time around wine and food, as well as virtual events during COVID. So help me better understand, who is the ideal experience customer for Duvan?
Well, I think it depends on that particular audience. So obviously, if you're in the corporate events that we do, a business executive, a manager, of a team, an executive who is looking to enhance their brand image with customers or motivate and mobilize their employees to reach goals faster, because of my consulting background, I'm able to go in and tie the wine experience to that business outcome to demonstrate an ROI. So business executive from the stands of the corporate program would be the audience. A wine aficionado is also a key stakeholder for me. People who are serious about wine, who build collections for their personal enjoyment, to age wine to get it to its maximum positive place so that they can enjoy it at its greatest potential, and also as investments. The wine is a very, very good investment, especially those that are in great demand, the rare wines around the world, such as the first growths. Every day someone pops a cork on a bottle of Chateau Lafite. It makes the remaining bottles of the 1982 vintage that much more attractive and therefore more valuable. So those are those collectors. And then there are those people who enjoy wine and are much more casual about it, but also want to learn more about it and enjoy more wine or get better value in the wines that they purchase. Mm-hmm. And so we try to create an environment that's comfortable for them to experience new wines, to try and expand their horizons, and to acquire those wines at a value proposition that is significantly more competitive than what they would find if they walked into the traditional retail store.
So let's talk about that for a second. So let's just say I'm a casual, I'm not a wine drinker, but I appreciate wine. There's some things I know about wine. There are a lot of things I don't know about wine. But I also know that wine pricing and span a very wide gamut. And how would you work, or what can you offer to someone like myself who wants to, learn a little bit more and find those good values, but also find new wines that I might not otherwise discover?
Well, Roman, I think the first point is everybody needs to be comfortable with what they are prepared to spend on a bottle of wine. And that's fine. And we all are in different financial circumstances. And if $25 a bottle is your choke point on what you're prepared to spend, that's fine. For other people, it may be $250. There are wines that sell for several thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. That's very rarefied air in a world in which I don't particularly walk very often, but happy to sell those wines. But I think for someone such as yourself, I mean, you know what you like, and you've told me, for example, in the past, Warren, I like red wines with this particular kind of character. I like them big and bold and fruity. So you give me a little bit of guidance. I will then be able to find you wines that suit your palate, and put a mixed case together, whether it's whites or reds or whatever, that and then and you've done this, and people call me up and say, "Hey, Warren, I'm having some Branzino for dinner. I'm putting it on the grill outside. Which of the bottles from that mixed case should I open?" I say, "Well, Branzino is a Mediterranean fish, a really good, really good wine from the south of France or Greece would be really good for you. And coincidentally, that Assyrtiko that's in your collection that you purchased last week would be perfect." So it really is, helping people land on where they're comfortable, and then pushing the boundaries slowly but carefully so that you can be comfortable broadening horizons.
You reminded me of a call I actually did make to you over last summer, when I was putting something on the grill, and I said, "Warren, what would work really well?" And it really did work out great. So it's a lot of that white glove. I thank you for reminding me of that. It's a truly unique experience when you can call someone like yourself and have a casual conversation that really enhances that entire experience. And so the dinner that we had at home with my family was made that much better because we just had that really perfect, not just the pairing of taste, but just there's a story and there's everything around it that developed. And so thanks for reminding me on that. And it's great that you do that for folks.
Yeah, and some people like to collect wines. If they find a particular wine, they'll buy a case here and there every few months, or whatever. But a lot of people like to have different things on hand. So one of the things we specialize in is putting mixed cases together. In fact, I've done a whole host of mixed cases on offer for folks who have encountered this spotlight today on our website, with proceeds donated to the Hebrew Free Loan Association. Where if you want to try some Italian wines, there's an Italian collection or a French collection or a California collection. And that way you get a half a dozen bottles of wine. And what folks do, what I encourage them to do, is if you grab a bottle out of one of these mixed case collections and you like it, take a photo and text it for me. And because, drink up, because next year they'll make more.
Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about your website and how folks can find or discover these mixed cases or various specials that you come across, or these great wines that you get your hands on that we wouldn't ordinarily be able to get, especially not at the price that you can get them at?
Sure, absolutely. So the website is not a pure e-commerce site in the traditional sense, because our model is direct personal interaction and engagement with folks. So you're not going to go to Duvan.com and see 500 wines, in inventory, and people who bought this, like that, etc. It's really about some special offers that are there. It's about the opportunity to join our wine club, or in this particular situation where we've created a special place on the website for folks who have attended this. So it's really to encourage people to sign up for our newsletter, so you're aware of the events that we're doing or the promotions that sporadically come out. It's not like we're going to hit you every single day with a new offer. It's only when the right things pop into our arms to share with other people.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pull up your website. Tell us where we need to go to do that, especially the special that you refer to for folks watching the Food for Thought series or participating in Food for Thought series.
Well,
so here I just brought up your website.
Right. So there's the landing page. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, or as you scroll through, as you go down, you'll see there's some experiences. So when we do have experiences, we put them there. These are some past offers that we've done, most of which still tend to be available. And then all the way at the bottom, there's a little dialog box, as you can see there, where if you put in your email address and click subscribe or whatever, when we do have offers of the type that you just saw above, that will come into people's emails. We try to get things out once a week or every 10 days or something like that. It depends on, as I say, what is special. But then if you scroll all the way up to the top, what I've created, Roman, is a special section on the menu bar there to the right. It should say HFLA.
All right.
So anyone who clicks on that, and this will stay up there on the website through the end of this year. So as you can see here, there's the Spotlight Showcase, but as we go down, there are different case offers. So you can see in there's a French case, an Italian case, California, New Zealand, Australia combination, South Africa, Argentina combination. And you just click on those. If you want more than 6 bottles, they're all 6 packs. You can get 2 quantities and get 12. And 10% of all the net proceeds from all of these sales through the end of the year, I will donate back to the Hebrew Free Loan Association. Because as a Business Circle member, not only do I donate to the Hebrew Free Loan Association, but in a couple of times through my career, I've had the opportunity and the luck to have been a recipient of business loans from the Hebrew Free Loan Association. And I'm very, very grateful for the support that the organization provided to me. And now, obviously, want to make sure that I'm giving back.
Well, that's amazing. And there's no better reason to encourage folks to order more wine from Duvan and help the agency that we all absolutely care and love so much, that does so much important work in our community and has been for 124 years. So thank you for doing that, Warren. And I was going to ask you what your connection was to the agency, but you just, I think, mentioned it being a loan recipient. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention that makes you feel so passionate in supporting this agency?
Well, yeah, I think that the work that the Hebrew Free Loan Association does, not only in the Jewish community, but in the broader community, particularly in these times, is so important. For a small business entrepreneur such as myself, being able to get that shot in the arm to help with Duvan, for example, fund the purchase of inventory through COVID, or during my consulting business to hire some staff to expand what I was able to do, is a very difficult prospect, borrowing money as a small business using traditional lenders. So the Hebrew Free Loan Association, while not designed to substitute for those mechanisms, can be a really, really solid bridge for entrepreneurs or small business owners to help navigate a particular crisis, or to implement a new strategy, or take advantage of an opportunity that we would otherwise not be able to do. But I'm also very passionate about my support for the organization, because beyond the business program, the work that they do with students, with families in need, it is, I think, a tremendous social service that can often mean the huge difference between not making it and being able to navigate through a particular crisis or set of negative circumstances that we all encounter in our life. No matter how successful we are, we often bump up against negative circumstances. And the Hebrew Free Loan Association, from a personal experience and from what I've seen them doing for others, is just one of the best charities around.
Thank you, Warren. I really, it means a lot on behalf of our business circle and the Hebrew Free Loan of San Francisco in general that you're doing this. And if any of our viewers have been to any of the Hebrew Free Loan events recently in the last year or two, the wine usually comes from Warren and Duvan. So thank you for that. And we've certainly all enjoyed some of your great selections over the years. And so as a quick plug, if you are interested in supporting not only Warren and Duvan, but also the agency, go to duvan.com, pick up some wine, explore, discover, and see if there's a great new experience that Warren is putting together that will fit your likes, your budget, and your desire. So thank you for that, Warren. And I do want to spend a couple of minutes, now that we talked about how the agency has been able to support you and your journey and starting Duvan, and in helping a lot of businesses and individuals navigate challenges, take advantage of opportunities, and improve their lives. I want to ask about your experience and how you've kind of pivoted now a number of times. You went from consulting to starting a small business. You went from a small business that was experience face-to-face based through a pandemic when we were all stuck at home, and how you pivoted once again to bring people the wine to their homes and continue that in personal connection. And as now, hopefully, we're getting in and out of this pandemic, I'm sure you're going to pivot again. What advice or what lessons learned? What are some of the highlights as a management consultant, as a business owner, can you share with our community that might help them navigate whatever challenges they might be experiencing at this time, or whatever opportunities that might present themselves?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, we tend to start businesses because we have a passion for it, or a new idea, or whatever the opportunity presents to move in a new direction. But what I would say is, right out of the gate, is do the strategy work. Find someone who can help. If you don't have the strategic background to define the vision and establish the goals and objectives, and then from that flow to defining the strategies that are going to enable you to accomplish those objectives and reach those goals, and then you can work out the specific tactics that need to execute on a strategic level. Now, I take that approach because that's what I learned in management consulting. In helping transform organizations, or launch new products, or engage with stakeholders, etc. And entrepreneurs, the cliche of shoemaker's children, we tend to jump right into the tactical stuff, and then you're always in reactive mode. So when I decided to start Duvan, I said, okay, I don't want to just be another wine retailer. I put on my consulting hat and realized that on-premise stores of people walking in to buy wines was not the wave of the future. And that was prescient, as it showed in COVID, because I didn't have a physical store with a whole bunch of staff and insurance and $1 million or $10 million of wine inventory. I was geared up to have wine delivered directly to people's doors. And it was tremendously successful. But that accident, in terms of the COVID outcome, was put in place through the strategic work I did in the beginning, recognizing that the future of the industry was in a particular direction. So that's do the strategy work. And if you don't have it, find someone with a background like mine, or a friend, or someone who's prepared to be on your board of directors, or friends and family, and take them out for a glass of wine and get that advice and counsel, because it's invaluable. The other piece of advice I would give is, you never know what's going to happen. So when I was consulting, I would say to people, one of the reasons you hire me is because I can help you see around the corner so that you don't get hit on the back of the head with a half a brick. And that's not because I'm smarter than anyone else, because it's experience and you've seen it. So the thing is, you never know what's going to come. So always be prepared for the unexpected. And when it does come, don't hang on to antiquated thinking just because you've always done it a certain way. It's frightening to pivot. It's frightening to go in a new direction. But that is really the secret for small business, because if you don't keep moving, it's going to pass you by.
So thinking ahead, forming a strategy, then tactics. Those are some of the things that I heard you say, which I completely agree with. And then prepare for the unexpected.
Correct. And then obviously be comfortable in revising your strategy based on the circumstances you face.
Now, that's massively helpful. Warren, do you see any changing trends in your space, in the wine industry, post-COVID?
Yes, I think so. I think, fortunately for our model, I think people have become accustomed to shopping online, much more so than ever before, for wine. And I think they are comfortable and actually have an expectation that the wine will now come to them instead of going into a big box store or another retailer. So I think that puts businesses such as Duvan at a competitive advantage. I also think that experiences, particularly in light of what we've been through the last year and a half or more now, is that people are clamoring for that personal interaction, for those experiences. So I think wine-related travel, wine-related experiences of the type we do with dinners and tastings are going to become more and more in demand. We have a program at Duvan called our Cellar Door program, where we've signed up wineries around the world so that when American tourists visit these wineries, instead of having to buy the bottles at the winery and schlepping them home with them, they can just go to an internet-enabled site I've created for that winery on their smartphone or on an iPad in the tasting room, buy the wines, and when they land back at their home in the United States, I ship the wine directly to their door. So I think those are the types of trends that I see developing that are going to make it much, much easier for wine lovers to experience new places, new wines, new varietals, and have the convenience of the wine arriving to the door when it makes sense for them, so they don't have to go out and find it.
Well, and I would add, at a price that is lower than what you would pay at a traditional retailer.
No, it's exactly right. I mean, the beauty of this model, and that's why I thought about it strategically, is one of the biggest challenges that small business face is lack of resources. And lack of resources are exacerbated by big overhead. So if you don't have a physical store in which you have to pay rent and insurance for that space and carry a huge amount of inventory, then you can reduce costs tremendously. You don't have to have staff sitting in the retail store during slow hours when no one's coming in there, not providing an ROI. And so I think that the off-premise retail model is the wave of the future.
Well, it's great that we have you as not only a wonderful resource, but a big supporter of the organization and the community. But before we go, how can folks reach you in case they have questions? I mean, you've covered a fair amount of ground in terms of, who would potentially benefit from Duvan and from your insights and your knowledge and your connections in the wine space, from casual wine drinker like myself to a collector to a corporate, executive that wants to do a team building exercise all around wine. How do folks find you?
Well, I'm sort of old school. Pick up the phone and call me. I love to talk to people. The reality is we're a flat organization. Yep. I'm the proverbial one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. It's all, I have help, of course, and a shout out to my wife Connie, who's been instrumental during the course of the COVID, helping me with the business. But it really is about that personal interaction. So call me or send me an email, and I'll get you what it is you need, whether it's a corporate executive retreat, or it's a mixed case of wine delivered to your door, or come over and sit on the deck here. We'll just drink some wine and shoot the breeze and figure out a path forward.
Well, I've put your email on the screen for those folks that are going to be watching this, either a replay or watching this live. So feel free to reach Warren by his email. I believe your phone number is on your website, which is duvan.com. Is that true?
It is.
So call Warren, email Warren if you have questions. And Warren, before we go, I got to ask you, what's your favorite wine?
I know the one I'm drinking. This is a lovely Sauvignon Blanc from Napa by Blueprint. How can you do a wine event without drinking some wine? I really think that, not to dodge the question, it depends where I am, what I'm eating, what my experience is. So if I've got a bone-in ribeye on the grill, I want a Brunello de Montalcino or a big cab or something like that. If I'm having that Branzino we talked about earlier, a lovely light floral white wine from around the Mediterranean would be something more interesting. If I'm having foie gras or blue cheese, I want a Sauternes. So it really depends. But many, many years ago, I picked my desert island wine, and that was the 1990 Paul Roger Winston Churchill champagne. Now, subsequent to that, I've had wines that have been an epiphany for me, like the 1961 Palmer, one of the greatest red wines I've ever had, and acknowledged around the top 10 of the 20th century. But just like you can't choose the football team you support, I was in LA when the Raiders were there, so I'm a Raiders fan. So even though it creates a lot of chagrin for my wife, if the Raiders are playing, that's how it is. If they're out, okay, 49ers. But you don't change your wine. So if I have to go to the desert island, I'm taking my 1990 Paul Roger Winston Churchill, which is not only one of the greatest champagnes in the world, but it's also one of the greatest wines in the world.
Well, perhaps one day sooner than later, we'll be able to have a glass together. Warren, I want to thank you for being here, taking some time, sharing some of your insights. And I'm sure, like most people watching or listening to this, you've just made me tremendously hungry and also craving a delicious glass of wine. So thank you,
Well,
my friend.
thank you. You know where to find me.
We know where to find you. And for all of you, thank you for watching. On behalf of everyone at the Hebrew Free Loan, I want to thank Warren for being a big supporter of the Business Circle, a contributor and supporter of the agency. And for all of you, our viewers, our community, I hope you found this conversation interesting, insightful, and fun. And I wish you well and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Warren.